What's up, narrators? We are back with the Narrators Per Possession podcast. I'm Morris, and tonight I am pleased to have a great guest coming up. And before I get into the introduction, just a little bit of housekeeping, of course. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment in this video. We're anxiously trying to grow the Narrators Per Possession podcast here and the whole community. So with that, I just will get right into the intro here. We have tonight a credentialed member of the Oklahoma City Thunder's media. He is also the managing editor of the OKC Thunder Wire and co-host of the Bricktown Breakdown. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to bring up Clemente Almanza. I hope I said that correctly.
No, you got it, man. Really appreciate the introduction. You made me sound more special than I actually am, for sure.
Hey, man, you get to talk to the world champ, so not everybody's saying that.
No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, pleasure to have you on, man. Really glad to be able to talk to you. I mean, just at a high level, I thought, what Oklahoma City, what the Thunder did and what the Pacers did for this finals this past season, I thought it was one of the better finals I've seen in I'll say easily a decade. It just feels like we haven't seen like that level of competition in a long time in NBA finals. So that was great. And certainly, we're going to talk deeply about the Thunder. But before we get into that, I just wanted to just give you opportunity just to sort of share a bit about your background, how long have you been covering the Thunder, how you even got into being able to cover them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I started to cover the team, I guess part-time when I was at college at the University of Oklahoma, where I majored in my journalism degree. Was able to do like a little bit of like I said, side coverage for a couple sites. And then like around my last semester, I was able to land this Thunder Wire gig with USA Today Sports Media Group. I've been with them now for 4 years now. I've been able to cover the team full time for entering my fifth season now, fourth in person. My first year was actually that post-bubble COVID year where everything was kind of online and a little bit weird. But yeah, like I said, it's been super cool. Just kind of like covering this team, seeing this team go through the rebuild, and seeing this team quickly ascend to a title contender and eventually becoming NBA champions. So to see that all kind of unfold in really a 5-year window has been super special for sure. Just kind of having a first-hand experience of it, just kind of covering the team on the day-to-day, and just kind of seeing that rise has been pretty cool for sure.
Yeah, so that it's definitely something I want to just sort of like uncover that journey with you like firsthand, because it's the Thunder go from, let's see, correct me if I'm wrong, like 2019, like that's really when like the rebuild sort of kicked off, right? That was the 2019-20 season, because coincidentally I'm a lifelong Bulls fan, so I know like when Billy Donovan exited the Thunder and then you guys hired, or the Thunder hired Dagnall, then it goes into full rebuild. Like, just what has that journey been like? Because 5 years is not it's not a short period of time, and just like to see this transformation to the highest levels of NBA, like how would you describe that from what you've seen being so close to the team over the years?
Yeah, I mean, you just so used to the day-to-day routine where they got a game day, you go to shoot around, you go to the arena in the afternoon, cover the game, don't get home till like 1 or 2 in the morning, 12 a.m., super late, and the next day, either an off day or practice. You just get so lost in that day-to-day that every now and then I just got to like step back a little bit and be like, man, it's kind of crazy just how like quickly this team has become, an NBA champion. It's just unreal what they've been able to accomplish in the last 5 years. And now you're seeing a bunch of teams kind of trying to kind of model what the Thunder did. And it's pretty tough. It's going to be a pretty tough act to kind of follow, because what they did is it's kind of a one-on-one case in NBA history, where, they did a really good job at landing all this talent, a little bit of luck, a little bit of preparation as well. When they first added Shea, like Nobody thought Shea would become the guy that he is now, where he just won MVP, Finals MVP, one of the greatest individual seasons ever, undisputed top 3, top 4 guy in the league right now. And to get him in the trade where he wasn't even the headliner, it was the draft picks that they got from that Clippers Paul George trade. To kind of see him kind of ascend to one of the all-time greats, really, like 3 straight 30-plus point per game seasons, unreal efficiency, one of the best two-way players in the league as well. And then, maybe to a little bit of a lesser extent, same thing with J-Dub, Jalen Williams, where, the Clippers gave you that lottery pick to land him at 12. And for him to stay at 12 and for him to kind of also be on a similar kind of trajectory where he came out of nowhere. Now in his third season, he's getting Scottie Pippen comparisons, and nobody's really taking an eye. All NBA third team, all defensive team as well. One of the 20 best players in the league. And obviously, you have Chet. They got a little bit of luck at the lottery that year, getting the second round pick, landing him. They did a really good job last offseason, adding guys like Hardenstein, Caruso. They got like a lot of like low-key, underrated developmental success stories all over the roster. I mean, Lou Dort was an undrafted free agent. Isaiah Joe was a waiver wire addition. Aaron Wiggins was the 55th pick. Kenrich Williams was the first name in the Steven Adams deal to New Orleans. They just got their entire roster just filled with guys like that where, if you consider like where they came from, these late second round picks, these undrafted guys, to see them develop into like these high end rotation players. And at the top, you have Shea and Jada, who were, lottery picks, but not taken into range where you expect them to be like top 15 guys in the league. It's just been super special and surreal to kind of see unfold for the Thunder. And now, they won one championship. They got this long runway now with everybody signing new extensions this past offseason. And yeah, I mean, they're just set up to be, a contender for probably the rest of the decade at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. You obviously want to knock on wood and make sure like health is there, but yeah, it would be hard to bet against somehow like a massive drop off happening with the OKC, with the Thunder. At least for this next season. I mean, who knows? Like, I feel like every time, like, I feel like I know I said this in a previous podcast before. Like, it's been like 7 seasons now, and every season we were talking about like, oh, here comes the next dynasty, and then something crazy happens. So, hopefully, yeah, everything just stays solid with the Thunder. So really, I think all those things that you hit on in terms of like how the Thunder really transformed their roster and gone from very much a full-on rebuild to like NBA champions, it seems underpinned by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So you mentioned like he wasn't even the headliner of the trade that brought him to Oklahoma City. In the time you've covered the team, do you have a point point in time where you could point to like, okay, it looks like SGA is really about to become like the guy, or he's ready to take that next level leap?
Yeah, I think I think this might have been the 2021 season. Like the year before they made the play-in tournament. I think it might have been 2021 or 2019, 2021 for sure, 21, 22, one of those 2 years. But there was a point where in one of those years, like an unreal stretch after the All-Star break, where he was averaging like 25 points on great efficiency. And the way he was able to do that, if you look at the numbers, was his ability to get to the free throw line. And that's kind of become a whole like talking point this last year or so with Shai and his ability to get to the free throw line. He's one of the best in the league at doing it, regardless of how you feel about it, whether it's quote unquote ethical hoops or whatever. But I remember just the numbers he was putting up after that All-Star break. He was putting up 25 points on really good efficiency, getting to the line a ton. And that's when it was the first time where you saw like a 2-month stretch by Shai. Granted, it was after the All-Star break. There's like a lot of variables involved with that. You got teams tanking, trying to lose out games. You got teams resting their guys with their seating locked up. So it's most of the time these games after the All-Star break, it's hard to like really take a ton out of and project long term. But just the way he was able to kind of dominate in that stretch, and then carry that over to the next season where he made his first All-Star game, and that was kind of the start of his current run now, where he's at 3 straight All NBA teams, 3 straight top 5 MVP finishes. That was really the first time where I realized, like, okay, this guy can be more than just somebody who can make 1 or 2 All-Star games in his career. Kind of be like I compared him to. I thought his ceiling whenever he first came to OKC, I thought his ceiling was maybe like a DeMar DeRozan type, and he's like blown past that easily. No offense to DeRozan, he's a great guy to like. If you could have his career, you would easily take it. But to see Shea that post All-Star break was really the point where I started realizing like, all right, this guy can be a little bit more. And obviously, he followed it up with a slow climb to like one of the league's best players. But yeah, I mean, like I said, just his ability to get to the free throw line, like that's probably the top skill all these great scorers have throughout league history is their ability to get to the line, generate 10 trips a night, get easy points off of that. Like that's the difference between a guy who's averaging like 20, 21, 22 points to a guy averaging 30 plus. Like I said, how you feel about it is regardless to the point I'm trying to make. But yeah, like I said, once you unlock the ability to get to the basket, be a drive heavy scorer, like he's led the league in drives for like 5 straight years now. To kind of do that and just unlock the ability to score an efficient 30 points basically every game. That was really the moment where like I said, I started to like think like, all right, maybe this guy can be a little bit more.
Yeah. And contextually, I joke a little bit, just because like I've watched a lot of DeMar DeRozan over the years. It is a reasonable comp for sure because the getting to the line pieces, that's definitely like a Venn diagram overlap between SGA and DeMar. Obviously, there are other ways SGA impacts the game, and there's just there's somewhat of a one-of-one kind of dynamic of like DeMar's game as well. But just like that, I can if nothing else, I'm just like I do understand how you came to that initial comp because like like the getting to the free throw line, that's a big part of it. Something that comes to mind too, and I think you mentioned this initially, is like there's a one-of-one kind of dynamic with Oklahoma City in terms of how like the development and the player development there, like being up close and being around the team over the years. What are the nuances of how they develop these players to be able to get them to be like high contributing, high functioning players? Frankly, regardless of where they're drafted.
Yeah, I think it kind of just goes back to kind of Mark. I mean, if you just look at his background, spent I think like a handful of years being the OKC Blue head coach, the G League coach for the Thunder. Kind of saw like, and the whole point of the G League program, at least for the Thunder's perspective, is developing guys at the NBA level. So kind of having that background, when the Thunder first hired him, he was kind of viewed as a developmental head coach and somebody who could help you, develop a bunch of these guys and see what you got. And obviously, since then, he's become like one of the best head coaches in the league. Won Coach of the Year last year. Obviously, won an NBA championship these past playoffs. But I don't know. I think everything kind of goes back to him. He's done a really good job of just kind of. It might sound simplistic, but he just plays a lot of guys all the time, and you don't really get that type of luxury in every, I guess, rebuild situation out there or situation period where somebody like Mark's willing to give everybody on the roster a fair shake at getting minutes, especially at the beginning of the rebuild. Whenever it was low leverage situations where guys like Pokuševski and Taylor Maledon were getting like 1,000+ minutes a season, just to kind of see what they had. But yeah, I mean, Mark, it's kind of known for being a pretty experimental head coach, pretty analytically friendly, pretty aggressive as well. He's given a lot of these guys a lot of runway in terms of the kind of learning on the court, and that's proven to help out the team in terms of like finding unhidden gems. Like you said, Aaron Wiggins, the 55th pick in the draft. Like if you look at the history of the 55th pick, most of those guys are out the NBA within a year or two. He turned into like a really solid contributor for them. Really helped in the playoffs with bench scoring. Isaiah Joe, another guy, didn't really do much the first couple of years in the league with the Sixers. Went to OKC, and now he's like one of the best bench 3-point shooters in the league. J-Dub as well. Jalen Williams, J-Will, the Arkansas, the one from Arkansas. Like, he's another guy who has really benefited from, I guess, the Thunder's ability to, encourage these guys to play out of their comfort zone without any serious like repercussions in terms of playing time early on in the rebuild. And now he's like, one of the better, I would say probably one of the better backup centers in the league. You can go on and on. Like, Kenneth Williams, another guy as well, who, was a throw-in guy in the deal a couple of years ago. He's developed into a really good backup defensive wing who can catch and shoot the ball. They just do a really good job of just kind of developing these guys, whether it's high-end guys like Shea, J-Dub, and Chet, or whether it's, on the margin guys like Wiggins, Joe, even guys, someone like AJ Mitchell. They've done just a really good job of not having too many massive draft misses, really, and just really finding these guys on the margin to carve out this super deep team where, you can go, into playoffs and play, 10, 11, 12, 13 man rotations deep in the playoffs, which most coaches conventionally don't do. But yeah, like I said, I mean, the Thunder, they've been known around the league since forever that they're one of the better developmental programs. And you definitely seen that with this iteration of the team where, most of the roster is made up of guys who weren't like high-end draft picks. I mean, really the only blue chip draft pick on his roster is Chet, and he was the second overall pick. And the Thunder only had one top 5 pick in this recent rebuild, I guess, where and for them to like kind of, make the most of that situation and end up developing one of the best teams really of all time. If you look at the stats for the Thunder this past year, it's been super special and speaks a lot about just how refined their developmental program is, even to this day.
Absolutely. And I suppose like you also have to find the right guys that you can put into those developmental programs, right? And I'm curious, Sam Presti gets a lot of accolades and he's earned this reputation for really like being this asset rich front office executive with the mountain of draft picks. From your vantage point, is there more to Sam Presti that he probably needs more credit and discussion about besides just obviously getting having amassed this mountain of picks? Like, it seems like there's not just my opinion, like there should be more talking about like his eye for talent and like how does he find these guys?
Yeah, I mean, he's just a scouting junkie, really. Like he was. I mean, he shared an interesting anecdote in his end of season press conference a couple months ago. Like, he said that to calm down his nerves for Game 7 of the NBA Finals, because Game 7 of the NBA Finals, that's like the highest of high stakes. Like, it doesn't get higher than that. So for him to kind of calm his nerves down a little bit, he said that he kind of attended a few pre-draft workouts that morning, just to kind of show just how big of a scouting junkie he is. Like, you don't really see guys like him have his status. The GM of an NBA team, the top dog, just kind of like travel all over the world, go to these near empty gyms just to like watch a guy. And that kind of like what separates probably Sam from like a lot of his peers is the fact that he still loves the whole scouting aspect of roster building, even with a contender right now. And that's obviously helped him find these guys super early. Like J-Dub, I think he was ahead of the curve with J-Dub than a lot of other NBA GMs were at the time. Nikola Topic is another guy as well. Pokuševski, like whenever, like there wasn't a ton of tape out of Poku whenever he was drafted. So I don't know. Sam's just a draft sicko. He loves player development, and that's kind of helped him become one of the better GMs in the league. And like you said, like maybe he hasn't gotten the credit that he has in recent years because of it, but now that he's won a ring, you're seeing people kind of finally catch up to conventional wisdom, just how special of a GM he is. Like I said, you don't last as long as he has as the GM without the results showing for it. Like, he's one of the longest tenured GMs in the NBA, been around since 2007. That's an eternity. in the NBA, considering just how high turnover those type of jobs can be. But yeah, like I said, I think now you're kind of seeing him kind of get some of his flowers. Like he won Executive of the Year for the first time this past season. Just won a championship. Um, that was really the only thing that he hadn't accomplished in his career, and now he has it.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I'm curious, like, has there been I guess any public statements from Sam Presti, like either this past season or even like I'm thinking either like this past season or the immediate, like not the 25 off season, but perhaps the 24 off season. Like outside conventional wisdom would have said like, oh, it's time for Sam Presti to cash in all these picks and make the big splashy trade to go get like a superstar, quote unquote, to add to the mix to finally get over the hump. It seems like Presti like vehemently resist. I'm just like hypothesizing. It seems like he vehemently resisted like the conventional wisdom of like, oh, let's use all these picks to go make this big top heavy like trade. Like has he? Yeah, like I guess has he shed any light in like how he viewed like I guess that kind of pressure on him? Perhaps, and pressure might be a strong word, but like just that again, that conventional wisdom was perhaps nudging like, oh, it's time to go make the big trade.
Yeah, I mean, Sam's always been a long-term thinker. Like he doesn't really, he's not really a fan of like pushing any like major chips to the table. Just I don't know, just because he wants to, just because he feels like it. And like Sam also has the luxury of having a patient ownership group that fully trusts him, that lets him, handle the basketball ops and not interfere. And not every GM obviously has that luxury, but Sam definitely does. So that helps him make that helps him make these long term moves that might not benefit in the short term. But yeah, like I said, like the Thunder, their first title window was open because of the fact that they had KD, Russ, Ibaka, Harden, all guys that they drafted themselves and kind of helped them develop and blossom into all NBA, all star type players. And it's one of those things where if you can do that, if you can get homegrown talent, especially as a small market, then you're set to be a contender for the next 5, 7, 10 years. Just from the fact that you get to have all these guys on 2 contracts. Obviously, the rookie skill contract, you get their first 4 years, and then the extension after that. Like I mean, most guys signed it anyway. So you got like 8 years, 9 years of team control on all these on guys like J-Dub and Shea and Chet. Like I just don't see why the Thunder would want to like throw that all away just to kind of go for an all-in move that there's a lot of upside, but there's also a lot of risk involved. Like for example, somebody like Giannis. Like I know that's been kind of a name floated around before the Thunder won the title, where if the Thunder did end up losing early in the playoffs again this year, would getting somebody like Giannis or KD, would that have made a lot more sense? And I don't know. I just never got the feeling that those were ever really options for the team. I think alternatively, they would rather build around Shea, Chet, and J-Dub, tweak the rest of the roster, and it just kind of feels like if you have those 3 guys, then you should be good to be a contender for as long as those 3 guys are healthy and kind of the proof's kind of in the pudding. Like they were back-to-back first season. They just won a championship.
Yeah, I would even argue. I mean, specifically with SGA. I mean, he had his extension kicks in the 27-28 season where it goes from 40 million to 60 million. By the time that caliber of money is kicking in, it's really a 3-year deal at that point. And Sam Presti and his team has obviously done an amazing job of just like not cornering themselves financially with too much top heavy money. And I agree with you. I think they've locked in their core and they have the ability to continue tweaking the roster around them, and you should trust. Like to me, like why would you not trust them just given how many hits they've had on the margins with guys that brought up through like G League means or undrafted, or just being able to like have sharp eyes for finding like Alex Caruso.
Yeah, and not only that, but when we talked about it a little bit, but the amount of draft picks they're sitting on is kind of crazy. Like this team, just for perspective, this team was the first seed for back-to-back years. Made the second round the first year. Obviously, won a championship the next year. Most of the time, those type of teams, they're not picking in the first round until like the 20 late like the 25th to 30th selection. But in the Thunder's case, they've been gifted back-to-back top 15 picks from other teams. Nikola Topic from the Rockets, Thomas Sorber from Miami, I think. So the fact that and those type of draft picks, like it's not stopping anytime soon. Like the rest of the decade, they got their hands in so many, I guess, pots a little bit with all these different teams that owe them draft picks. Where eventually it's going to work out in your favor some years just because of the amount of swings that you have at it. Where you are given a high quality draft pick, even though you did make a deep playoff run. So whenever you're giving that much currency, draft currency to round out a title contender, it's just kind of makes it super easy to do what the Thunder are kind of hoping to do, where they got their three main guys, and then the rest of the roster can kind of rotate around with cheap young talent, and you're still able to have your window open as a title contender and not be forced to make any super tough financial decisions that might prematurely shut it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that that's an underappreciated aspect of like the front office moves in this new CBA era. Like I keep thinking about and we wrote a piece at Narratives Per Possession about the Brooklyn Nets offseason. There's so much like confusion about the Nets selecting all 5 of their first round draft picks, but when you consider like who was on their roster and the choices involved, like why would they not stack 5 cheap rookie scale contracts and just see like what hits out of that? Like to me, that's a pretty prudent upside play when you don't have all that much money committed to your cap sheet in the first place. So yeah, I mean the draft is just one of those cost efficient ways where you can really make a lot of change in your in the future of your franchise.
Yeah, like I said, like the Nets are a good example of that. Like I said, they added 5 guys in this draft class. They got kind of hurt a little bit with the lottery odds. Obviously, they made the best of a bad situation. The Wizards are another team that's done that as well. I really like their 24 class that they had. They got a lot of guys I really like from that. And then obviously this year as well. And obviously, they're kind of following the, I guess, Thunder blueprint just because, Will Dawkins is their GM now, and he spent like 15 years with the Thunder beforehand. So you're kind of seeing, him kind of like manage the Wizards' rebuild a little pretty similarly to like how Sam did early on, where, he's adding a ton of guys. He's taking a ton of swing on guys because when you're in the early stages of a rebuild, you're basically starting from scratch. So that means you got to take a ton of swings. Hope some of these guys, develop into like NBA players, and if not, then it's only going to help you lose more games and maybe eventually add like another premium pick for the following draft cycle. So, like I said, like you're seeing teams like Brooklyn and Washington kind of like follow a similar game plan to what OKC did with the quantity of draft picks that they're adding early on in the rebuild. And yeah, like I said, I think like you always hear the cliche, it's a copycat league, and you're kind of seeing that with the Thunder and how some of these other teams are kind of handle their draft this last.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just think it's in a lot of ways you're playing simple math. It's you want to increase your probability of success by having multiple players who hopefully hit on their potential. And if they don't, the key from what I've seen from OKC, right, is at the same time like there's never been like some willingness to stay like overly committed to any one guy. Like, I mentioned Alex Caruso, but just a willingness to make that deal for straight up Caruso for Giddey. Like, and it obviously worked out in OKC's favor. I think that's the key. It's like constantly have to cycle through the talent, and when you find the hit, you lock in the hit, and then when you hit and when you flop, you let go of it.
No, yeah, for sure. The Thunder do a good job at not getting not falling for like some cost fallacy for some of these guys, because you see it all the time in the NBA. Some of these guys are given a lot more leeway. They probably should, just because of where they were taken in the draft. And like you said, Giddy's a really good example of the Thunder just not doing that. Obviously, where he was super solid his first 2 seasons. Year number 3 was kind of a little iffy, and like a lot of it has to do with the fact that guys like Jada and Chet kind of like you know passed him on the totem pole in terms of like ball handling possessions, and not to like dive too deep into like the Giddy era of things where he kind of like struggled. Well, I don't want to say he struggled that year, but his last year here, like it was pretty obvious that he needed the ball in his hands. There just weren't that many uh, possessions for him to take up that would have him be the primary initiator. They made the best of it that season, but obviously, probably best for both parties. Like Giddy got traded to Chicago, went back to playing a role that he was comfortable in. A pretty decent bounce back season this past year, and then you got back somebody who, fit your roster a lot better in Caruso, who, didn't need the ball in his hands to be an efficient player. One of the best defenders of his era, I would say, and really helped you win a championship by being, I would say, he's probably like the 4th most important player of the Thunder's playoff run this past year for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing I would add too is, the Thunder really, the timing of when they acquired Caruso was, I think, invaluable to the goal they wanted to accomplish, because Caruso came in, I would argue, as a much improved offensive player than perhaps people give him credit for, because much better reliable. Like, if you can, like, there's a time where like Caruso kind of like wasn't going to command any attention from like the 3-point line, but he's continued to invest in himself and improve himself to where, like, he is a serviceable 3-point shooter when needed. It's not his game, but like he can hit those shots. And I think, we saw in the finals, like, they're just in addition to hitting threes when needed, he has a basketball IQ that just, like, I don't know if you can ever fully articulate how impactful his mind is on the court, on both ends of the court. Obviously defensively, but just being able to like be a secondary playmaker when needed.
No, yeah, like he was an A+ addition in the offseason. Hardenstein as well. Like those are 2 role players who really just seamlessly fit into what the Thunder needed. There was really no awkward beginning stage where maybe they didn't want to step over anybody's toes. Like as soon as they, signed with OKC, played with OKC, like they knew what they were doing, and like I said, they were major additions that fit right in, and both of them had their moments in the playoffs to kind of help the Thunder, end up winning a title.
Yeah. I live here in New York City, actually, and so I gained a lot of appreciation for Hartenstein's game when he played for the Knicks, and I just think, like a guy like that, you don't have to worry about him at all. Like he plays such a fundamentally sound brand of basketball as a big, where he, like, I love seeing what he does out of the short roll, like his playmaking out of just like those short roll actions, and then also at the top of the key, it's just like it's he becomes a secondary sort of playmaker. And I think that's invaluable to Shea, right? Because the ball can move and the ball can get back to him, and it's not so much pressure on like Shea to be like a Helio guy where he's constantly like being like dribble the air out of the ball kind of guy.
No, yeah, and like somebody like Isaiah Joe also had a career season this past year. Like a lot had to do with the fact that him and Hardenstein had a really good, I guess, DHO chemistry. A couple of times, like Hardenstein mentioned a couple of times this past year, that it kind of felt similar to what he had with DiVincenzo whenever he was in New York. And I don't know, the stats kind of back it up. Like Joe averaged 12 points, shot 40% from 3 on 6 attempts. Obviously, the playoffs, he kind of fizzled out of the rotation, but man, he was like unreal in the regular season. Really helped the Thunder, dominate the regular season as well. But yeah, like Hardenstein just kind of unlocked a new element for the Thunder on both sides of the ball. Gave him like a old school type of rebounder / screen setter, old school type of center as well. And that was something they really didn't have last year, or really the last couple of years. So to kind of add that type of archetype to your team and give you that, that type of flexibility with the type of lineups you can throw out there. It was really crucial for the Thunder, and they ended up winning a title starting every playoff game besides those 3 finals games with Hardenstein and Chet in the front court.
Yeah, I mean that was a bold call in a lot of ways by Dagnall, like deciding to go away from the two big starting lineup. And I mean, I'll be honest, like I wasn't sure how I wasn't sure like how effective that was going to be like early in that final series, because it seemed like the Pacers sort of like pounced on that with their bigs, and just the like they had versatility of their bigs as well, between like obviously Miles Turner and Siakam, and even like when Obi Toppin found his groove for a bit in that series, like it seemed like that might have been a treacherous trap potentially, but I mean to Thunder's credit, like they just persevered. And it's great when you have that kind of depth where you can have these versatile lineup situations you can approach a game with.
Yeah, like I said, I kind of looking back at it, it was one of those things where it did what it was supposed to do. Like it created a bunch of turnovers, obviously.
Yeah,
especially those first 2 games. Like the Pacers were turning it over at a crazy percentage. It's just that they weren't scoring on the other end. Like I think game 1, they forced 25 turnovers, but only scored 9 points off of them. So, like I said, it's one of those things where defensively it did what it was supposed to do. It was just the other end of the floor where everything kind of fell apart. And like I said, eventually Mark went back to Hardenstein being a starter, and that ended up, I guess, you ended up winning the title with him as your starting center.
Yeah. So starting to look forward to we'll be in the next season like in another month or so. Like I'm sure like you'll have media day coming up about a month and a half or so. What would you define as the case for Oklahoma City being repeat champions when we get to the 2026 NBA Finals?
I think the Thunder are just in a rare position where they're the rare NBA champion who have basically their whole roster back, besides like some changes at the bottom of the depth chart. And you don't really see that with a ton of these champions. A lot of the time, your average NBA champion, probably most of their rotation is probably guys 25 plus. But the Thunder, second youngest champion in NBA history. They still got a ton of room to grow, crazy enough. I mean, J-Dub's only 24, entering his 4th year. Chet's only 24, hasn't really played a whole ton his first 3 years. A lot of room to grow there as well. Cason Wallace is 21. They just got a lot of room to grow in this roster. You're expecting these guys to naturally improve just because of it. And I don't know. I just think this team's pretty well set up to kind of be obviously in the title picture as well, and be one of the. I would say they're probably like one of the best recent champions since the Warriors, probably of like their odds of like repeating, just because of the fact that they have so much continuity from last year, and you would think naturally like a lot of these guys are only going to get better.
Yeah, no, those are solid points, because I mean certainly youth is on the Thunder side. There is a roster continuity piece, which is I think important for any team that's going to attempt to repeat, or at least get back to the finals. You have to have that. So you have all those pieces there, and we've talked about how Sam Presti hasn't necessarily ever pushed the chips all in, but he can push chips at least when it comes to like if something looks a little off, maybe there is a move to be made at the trade deadline this upcoming season where keeps things on track or gets things back on track. Because certainly, I mean, again, looking at this past finals, nobody expected the Pacers to be in that NBA Finals, and I mean, they didn't have a solid start to their season at all. So, it's a lot of avenues, and it helps that the Thunder are so asset rich. I guess on the flip side of it, what would you consider to be what would be the biggest risk to the Thunder not repeating next season?
I mean, if we're talking about teams, like obviously the popular picks, Houston with KD. I like that addition. He's exactly what they need after last year. Like heading into the playoffs, I think everybody kind of knew that the Rockets didn't really have anybody who could be like the go-to scorer, and now they have like one of the greatest ever. Even now, like even though he's like 36 years old, like he's still going to give you 25 plus. So I really like what the Rockets did, just adding KD. Like I think that was probably the biggest move of the offseason. It kind of got buried a little bit just because I think it happened on the same day as Game 7 of the Finals. Denver, I mean, they got Jokic, three-time MVP winner, pushed OKC to 7 games. I know they tweaked some of their roster, some of the rotation this offseason as well, bringing back Bruce Brown, adding Valanciunas, getting Cam Johnson. I don't know. I think those are decent moves. But, Jokic is one of those guys where as long as he's healthy, he's a guarantee 50-plus wins by himself. The Lakers, I mean, Luka has historically kind of given OKC trouble, whether he was in Dallas or LA. Now they have a full offseason underhand with Luka and LeBron, and they added some guys as well with their rotation. I think they could be a sneaky team to like give OKC trouble as well. But yeah, I mean, those 3 teams are probably coming top of the mind. Nobody in the East really scares me in terms of like what they could do against OKC. But yeah, I mean, besides those 3 teams, like obviously injuries as well. Like the Thunder, last year in the regular season they had some of the worst injury luck ever. Like Chet was out for 3 months of the season. Hardenstein missed the first month of the season with a broken hand. I think everybody missed time at one point during last year. I think they were like top 6 in games missed from injuries in the regular season. But in the playoffs, like they were able to stay fully healthy. Like I don't think a single guy missed a game in the playoffs, besides Topic, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, like injuries as well. That's another factor that doesn't get talked about a ton. With how some of these teams kind of fall in the playoffs earlier than expected is that sometimes you just get a bad injury, bad luck, and that kind of ruins your season. So that's another thing you kind of like also kind of keep in mind. But yeah, like I said, outside of that, like I don't know, like I'm expecting another season where the Thunder are probably gonna, at the very least contend for the first seed. Shea's gonna do his thing. Like Shea's one of the best in the league right now. Just turned 27 years old. Like that's exactly whenever somebody's like at the top of their powers. J-Dub is only going to improve. Chet's only going to improve. And yeah, I mean, like I said, injuries and a couple teams in the West that maybe could give OKC fits. But either way, I think the Thunder should enter next year as a favorite. And like I think a lot of like, I think that kind of reflects on just conversations around social media and these betting sites as well, where the Thunder are probably seen as like the top team to win a title next year just because of like what they have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not much of a gambler, but I would probably bet on at this moment right now. Yeah, I would definitely bet on like a Thunder Rockets Western Conference Finals. Because I thought amazing, like the Rockets were amazing defense in the playoffs, but there were definitely limitations with just the guard play, like in my opinion. So yeah, you go get KD. That's exactly what they needed. And I would be like, well, I'll be paying attention to with the Rockets. Like, I'm really curious how Alperen Sengun is going to play this upcoming season because in a lot of ways, I think just the presence of KD on the floor is going to open up a lot. I think it'll simplify a lot of things for Sengun because it seems like he had a hard time, at least in that first round series in the playoffs, with like just finding effective spots for himself. Like it seemed like he either was getting just like sort of outmatched physically, or he just couldn't find like just like simple offense for himself. So like you have somebody like KD on the floor, that's just gonna open up like KD's gonna command attention that like he should be able to take advantage of, especially with his versatility in the sense of he can definitely put the ball on the floor, he can get to the rim, but he continues to challenge himself as a shooter as well. So it'll be interesting to see like what that lineup looks like this coming season.
No, yeah, like I said, and that's probably my most interested team to watch for next year outside of OKC, just Houston, because KD, one of the greatest spacers ever, one of the greatest scorers ever. But man, they got like a lot of they don't really have a ton of like shooters. Like they kind of triple down on center with Adams and Capella. Amen still got a way to go as a shooter as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested to see just how kind of Houston looks like, considering they added KD, who's like the guy that spaces the floor for you, but the rest of the roster really they don't really have a ton of like guys that can really scare opposing teams from the 3-point line as well.
Yeah. I mean, I would be willing to bet also some of what they're going to go after, they being the Rockets. You know, Ime Udoka has a very strong defensive reputation, right? So I would expect he's going to try to like make the underpinning of his offense really his defense, and like get stops, get in transition, get easy buckets. Kind of solves some of the non-shooting problem.
Yeah, if KD has a trailer, oof.
Yeah, it's gonna be nasty. So just to like round it out, so yeah, the Thunder are in an interesting perspective or position because like they are the NBA champions now, and they're gonna come into this 25-26 season with two first round picks as rookies, primarily because of Nikola Topic. He has injury his actual rookie season, so we're getting the debut of Nikola Topic and Tom Sorber. What have been some of your impressions of them so far? From perhaps like if there's anything you saw from them in summer league, or just like what you're expecting from them for this upcoming season.
Yeah, for Topic, like he looked like a guy who hasn't played basketball in over a year at summer league. Like a lot of turnovers. Played a little rushed as well. But I don't know. Like the more games he got in, I think he looked a little bit better, a little more comfortable. Especially in transition, kind of pushing the pace, driving to the basket, drawing contact, getting to the line. Super confident player as well. Like some of the shots he took at summer league was like, oh yeah, this guy believes in the shot for sure. And obviously, at summer league, like you can't really take a whole ton away from it. Low pressure environment. No real urgency to win games. But I don't know. I like what I saw from Topic. In terms of like his role next year, it's kind of I just don't know if he'll be somebody that will be a mainstay in the rotation. I think he'll have his moments throughout the season. Like I think there'll definitely be like 2-week stints every now and then where he's like he's averaging like 15 plus minutes off the bench. Just because that's how the way Mark kind of coaches his roster. But I don't know, like I just don't really expect a whole ton of him his first year. Just turned 20 years old, super young. I could definitely see him being somebody who could play in the G League a little bit. I really think it's the other OKC guard that played in summer league who really has a chance to like really be like a backup guard, and that was AJ Mitchell. Like he was awesome in summer league, averaged over 20 points, got to the free throw line a ton, made the all summer league second team for whatever that's worth. But he was really good in Vegas and Utah. He missed like 3 months last year from toe turf surgery, and that kind of cut his rookie season short because by the time he came back, it was the playoffs, and obviously you're not going to put a second round rookie in position to play high leverage playoff minutes. But before he hurt his toe, like he was like running the second unit a little bit with J-Dub. Really good backup point guard. Could run the pick and roll. Could shoot the ball outside as well. So out of those two guys, I think AJ is definitely the one who could contribute next year. And it kind of makes sense because, AJ, he's a little bit older. He's 23 years old. A little bit more, his body's more NBA ready right now than Topic is. So I would expect AJ to like be more of a contributor next year. And with Topic, you kind of hope long term he kind of develops into this high field playmaker for your bench as well. But and Sorber, he didn't play summer league. He's still recovering from foot surgery that cut his season short at Georgetown. But yeah, like it seems like he's probably going to be the eventual Hardenstein replacement because it's really tough to kind of see the Thunder bring him back on a new contract after this year. Like he has like a $28.5 million team option for the 26-27 season. And I have a hard time seeing the Thunder pick that up just because that's also the year where, J-Dub and Chet and J-Dub and Chet extensions are going to kick in. Shea's going to be making a ton of money as well. Those three guys alone are going to take up like 80+% of your payroll. So I just have a hard time seeing them be able to afford to bring back Hardenstein. So I don't know. They kind of drafted Sorber with the hope that he'll eventually be the backup center long term. And if you look at his Georgetown tape, he does a lot of like what Hardenstein has done as well. Obviously to a much smaller scale in college, where you know he's a old school type center in terms of his archetype. Like he's huge for a 19-year-old. Like I mean, really good size, really good length, positive wingspan. Um, and then he's shown some flashes as well as being kind of a secondary playmaker as well. Some DHO actions in Georgetown, um, and like I said, also super young, 19 years old. Like I said, but yeah, like I said, he didn't get a chance to play in summer league, but I mean, I'm excited to see what he looks like in preseason for sure. I'm assuming he'll be cleared to play by then.
Yeah, it should be interesting. And, a note I'll add, because I think you bring up a great point about Isaiah Hartenstein's contract situation going into not this season but next season. According to Spotrac, like the Thunder are projected to be a second apron team next season, and I would assume, or I would at least bet, like a quote unquote small market team like OKC, there would have to be a strong, I suppose, a strong reason for them to like really go into aprons with the team, and really it just kind of, to me, run counter to like how they've run that franchise.
Yeah, I mean, ownership's shown that they're willing to pay up for a super expensive team like that PG Carmelo Russell Westbrook team. Like they had the highest payroll in NBA history at the time, so they've shown a recent history of being able to like pay up for a contender. But I don't know, it's one of those situations where they got like a group of role players that are going to need new deals here pretty soon. Obviously Hardenstein, Lou Dort, I think only has like a year left in his deal. Cason Wallace is going to be eligible for an extension this next summer as well. So those three guys, like I think they'll be able to keep one or two of them. And that kind of puts you in a situation where you got to lose like somebody else, and it kind of feels like Hardenstein's probably kind of a little bit of the odd man out, just how much cleaner of a divorce it would be just not picking up his team option and letting him leave. And but I don't know. Like I said, they got some pretty tough roster decisions to make here starting next summer with some of these role players. But like I said, like as long as they got Shea, J-Dub, and Chet, like they should be good for the long term.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, Thunder, if they do go down that path of declining Hartenstein's team option, maybe it becomes something where, like, Al Horford, he took that team-friendly discount with the Celtics, and then they go and win the title. So, I mean, even if Hartenstein didn't come back, I mean, really, I think he accomplished the mission that he came in there to accomplish, right? Get a title out of it. So,
yeah, and not only that, but like if push comes to shove and they really want to keep him, like they got so many movable contracts on their books. Like somebody like Isaiah Joe could be moved pretty easily. Somebody like Aaron Wiggins, Alex Caruso has a pretty movable contract as well, and Kenrich Williams, another guy as well. Like all those guys I just mentioned, like if you were to put them out, if you were to make them available as a trade target, there'd be a line of teams lining up to get them. So I don't know. Like I said, they got a ton of options here in terms of like how they're gonna build out the rest of the roster beyond the big three that they have. It's just one of those things where I'm interested to see like who they kind of prioritize to keep around and who they're willing to kind of let go starting next summer. But I mean, that's one of those things where you'll cross that bridge when you get there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it will. I mean, these are all things that I think are going to make this Thunder season, this upcoming season, like just intriguing on multiple levels. Because I mean, it's obviously the title defense itself, but just how does this roster continue to evolve with the challenges of the cap sheet and obviously health and all these different things, and what happens if some some upswings or some upside are realized in the competitors in the West. I mean, the West is always, I feel like, a dogfight. So it's a lot of stories to keep tabs on.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Clemente, I really appreciate this conversation. It was awesome, man, being able to talk talk about the champs with you and all the insights you gave, and then just getting appreciation for like this whole journey this particular franchise has taken, because in a lot of ways I think even though the champs is just like, for some reason I just feel personally like there needs to be more like conversation and attention about like how this team really just did what they did, because you know, if we go by like, you know, the worldwide leader of sports, like, you know, they weren't even a team worth talking about.
This
And
is
I don't believe that, but you know,
I mean, this is like the 25 Thunder are like one of the greatest teams ever. Like if you just did a blind resume test, like they set the league record for point differential. They scored the most total points in a season ever. Like if you just like went on Basketball Reference and, you know, went through, you know, some of the greatest seasons ever. I mean, this Thunder team's like right up there with all the other all-time great teams, like, you know, the KD Warriors, the 1970s Bucks, and the Lakers, the MJ Bulls as well. It's just kind of surreal, like just kind of, you know, see that kind of firsthand and just kind of see like one of the greatest teams ever, where they made, you know, blowout wins super numb and to the point where it was kind of expected for most of the season.
yeah, it was just, I mean, it was outright dominance this past season. So you have to just give credit to that level of winning.
No, yeah, for sure. And like I said, like I mean, they're set up for a while, man. It's kind of crazy what they got. Um, like I said, we talked about it pretty well detailed here, but I mean, I just don't think the Thunder are gonna go away anytime soon. And you know, this is gonna be like another long title window where, you know, they're gonna be in a conversation for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. Clemente, tell us, like, where can folks find your work? Where can people listen to you, watch you, all the means of content that you have out there?
Yeah, I mean, you can find all my work at OKC Thunder Wire.com. Daily articles there about the team. Just hit that up. Obviously, follow me on Twitter, Almanza 1007. You know, I cover every game. I go to most practices. I go to most shoot arounds. So, you know, if you just want somebody that's around the team basically 24/7, definitely hit me up and just, you know, follow along for my tweets and articles for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really appreciate that and love being able to like get like, yeah, that kind of firsthand point of view. Since you're like there embedded with the team. So that's awesome. Excuse me. So that's awesome. So thank you for that. And then very quickly, I will plug our narratives per possession Patreon community. Please join the community we have out there on Patreon, where we have written content. We also upload a lot, you know, our podcasts and other video content. And we're just really trying to create a cool community that can inform like the great basketball community, just drive like high quality basketball conversation. And of course, you know, subscribe please to Narratives Per Possession here on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe. And with that, yeah, thanks everyone out there. Be safe. Have a good night.